Welcome back. Well, there are dozens of so-called sober homes across the island. They're supposed to help recovering addicts transition back to a normal life. But in a special Newsday News 12 investigation, reporter Tom Maier found that some sober homes are set up to benefit landlords more than the patients. It's a story you'll see only on 12.
They just assumed that I was going to die a miserable death, and I was okay with that.
Alcohol, heroin, and cocaine nearly wrecked Mike Josel's life. After months of rehab, he's now living on his own in Brentwood. It's a huge improvement from the place he moved to after his treatment, this so-called sober home in Gordon Heights.
That was my room up there with that single window.
It was supposed to be a fresh start, but Mike shared the house with several other men who had a history of drug and alcohol abuse. In this sober home, he says, there were no counselors.
Everybody in the house was doing it.
But lots of booze and drugs.
Shortly after being there, I wound up relapsing on alcohol and eventually went back to heroin use. It was just the environment I was in. There was no hope. There was no way out. I lost all my support.
It's a common story among Long Island's more than 200 sober homes. There's no legal requirement to provide residents with counseling and support, and critics say many of the homes are run by absentee landlords who are in it strictly for profit.
And the profits often come at taxpayer expense. Many of the recovering drug and alcohol abusers who are living in houses like this one are receiving rent subsidies from the county.
He's had up to 38 people in this home.
Legislator Kate Browning says those rent payments from recovering substance abusers are making landlords rich.
So you're collecting a rent payment from 38 people, and anywhere from $300 to maybe $500 per person. I understand people have to make money, but this is an abuse of taxpayers' dollars.
But the owner of this home says it and others he owns have helped a lot of people and that he's entitled to a profit.
As an entrepreneur, the word profit is not a dirty word. Anyone that's in business is supposed to make a profit. Otherwise, you're not in business tomorrow to provide services.
But critics say many sober homes are not about services.
Sober homes are exploiting vulnerable people who have nowhere to turn. This is exploitation that should not be happening in America.
For Newsday and News 12 Long Island, I'm Thomas Maier.
Joining us now from the Newsday newsroom is Thomas Maier, who has been looking into this situation at Long Island sober homes for more than a year. So thank you for joining us. A fascinating segment. What put this on your radar?
I actually filled in for another reporter here at Newsday, and I thought it would be a very fascinating story if we could get inside the sober homes.
Yeah, what I find fascinating is that these people transition from rehab centers into these sober homes, halfway houses, whatever you want to call them, with absolutely no regulation whatsoever, and yet the taxpayers are paying for this. Is that correct?
Yeah, this is one of those type of social issue stories that falls between the cracks of a lot of different government agencies. And that's part of the problem of oversight. It's something that is really at the center of a lot of this debate.
Now, what are some of the big surprises that you found looking into this story?
Well, I was particularly surprised by the amount of money that people can make by putting a number of people into a sober home all at once. And I was also surprised and concerned about the fact that we could be spending a lot of taxpayers' money to get people well, and then they wind up in sober homes where drug abuse is still rampant, and they wind up going back to square one, going back to their drug addiction. And that we see in tonight's piece that there was a really good example of that, I think, at the very beginning with Mike Josel.
Yeah, and Tom, that hit me too. 38 people in one house. I know that you talked to legislator Kate Browning about that. She seemed to be somewhat outraged. Is this a systemic problem, or was this more of an isolated incident?
No, they expect that estimate that there's more than 200 sober homes all across Long Island. It's one of those stories that's hidden in plain sight, I think. And just as a lifelong Long Island resident, I found that very surprising, just how many homes there are. So I think that was a big part of the story. It's something that we're not aware of, and I'm glad that we were able to put the spotlight on it tonight.
No, absolutely. You did a fantastic job in your piece. Let me ask you about the landlord, Adrian Thomas. You talked to him. He seemed unapologetic about profiting off of this. Certainly capitalism, there's nothing wrong with that. But did he have any concern about the fact that these people were relapsing and he was really kind of making a lot of money off of this particular situation?
Well, he doesn't portray himself as anything more than what he is, which is a businessman saying, you know, I'm looking to maximize the profit, and that he'll try to provide services, or at least try to provide some help, at least, if he can. But there really is no tie to treatment whatsoever in most of these homes, including his. And that's a big part of the problem.
All right, Tom. How is Mike Josell doing now?
He's doing well. He is somebody who was part of the Suffolk lawsuit that wound up declaring Suffolk's law as unconstitutional, illegal, and it was something that is very near and dear to his heart. I know he and a lot of folks were really concerned that we should be able to tell their story and point out that a lot of these sober homes are anything but sober.
All right, Tom, appreciate that. Great job on that piece. Give us a tease of what we're going to see tomorrow in part 2.
Okay, well, tomorrow night we get inside the sober homes here on Long Island, and we also look at one particular home where a young man died of an overdose of drugs in a place that was supposed to be sober.
All right, Tom, appreciate that. Tom Maier from Newsday.